Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Folks, welcome back to the pregame show where sometimes we get our signals crossed, but our swords always are. Welcome to the Crossing Swords pregame show, sponsored by the place to buy a case, Outlet Liquor, the spot where you can get it done anytime, anywhere in Western New York. And speaking of getting it done, Gatesy, a big, can't capitalize it enough, big matchup tonight at home against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I mean, even if it wasn't against the Maple Leafs, this would be a massive game for Buffalo. Teams coming off hot. It's that time of year, playoffs right in front of us. The team's still in contention. That's a whole conversation for later in the show. But the fact that it's the Maple Leafs as well, they haven't been in the Sabres arena in almost 15 months now. It's going to be a super exciting night of hockey. Hopefully a lot of energy, a lot of fans there.
And let me take you back a little bit, folks. About a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, Sabres literally end December 8-1 in their last 9. Then they lose 3 straight, lose a couple more, go on a winning streak of 5 in the middle of January, then lose 4 straight between end of Jan and February. A couple of them by multiple goals. So again, it's been a streaky team all season, but Gatesy, winners of 2 straight, a great West Coast trip where they've had success all season. An away-like atmosphere, potentially, playing at home against the Maple Leafs. Do you think that fits the Sabres? Do you think they're feeling good going into this matchup tonight?
Yeah, I think there's one thing that we have noticed about this team is they really respond when there's energy in the building, especially at home, whether that be good or bad. This team really shows out and plays their best game when the fans are behind them, and there's just energy in that rink. Because, there's been a lot of years, a lot of games where hasn't always been the case, and I think now – in the big games they played this year, they really showed out. So I think tonight's going to be one of those nights.
And we were talking, I think it was about a week ago or so, or a week plus, and we were talking about, 31 games in 62 days. I'm thrown off from this first stretch. I'm not going to lie, Gates, because it's been a couple days off here, a couple days off there. I know you were telling me in the pregame, what is it, 4 games in the next 6 days, and they're all against basically heavyweights? Shout out that great Disney movie.
Yeah, it's true. And these are teams that are ahead of us in the Atlantic, and teams are fighting for this wild card spot. So these next 6 games, I don't want to say are make or break, but the team has these games in hands for a reason. And if they can take advantage of it, at least split this series when they go to Florida, they got to beat the Panthers. That's a big one. And the Capitals, those are 2 teams. They're all fighting for this wild card spot. So if the Sabres can at least win those games, get points out of it, that'll be huge to use those games in hand and just continue that push for the postseason.
And obviously, listen, Granato would slap me silly if he heard me talking, because I'm looking at this 3-game stretch. I'm looking at it kind of chunks at a time. Like you said, I mean, in 4 days, these 3 games are going to be over with. So we'll know the results. A lot of these are games in hand. We're going to be catching those up in the next couple weeks. When I look at these next 3 games, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Florida, I know we're on the Toronto pregame show right now, so it's getting a little bit ahead of it. I would take 3 points out of these 3 games. I know that, 500 isn't what they need down the whole stretch. But if you told me that, let's say, regulation loss tonight, OT loss on Thursday, and then 2 points against Florida on Friday, would you sign up for that?
110%. Like, these losses to Toronto and Tampa Bay, these teams above us that have the Atlantic secured, doesn't really mean too much. You could lose those same games to other teams, but you got to get 2 points, especially in regulation, is huge against the teams fighting for a wild card spot, because at the end of the day, the Sabres aren't going to make the run for an Atlantic spot. It's going to be a wild card, hopefully a number 2 spot, slide in there and break a 12 years drought. Like, that's insane.
Yeah,
comes
and
down to
we've
those
talked
games.
about it, whether it's, should the expectation be make the playoffs? I think they are right on the cusp, the precipice of, transitioning from you should make the playoffs once you get to the position. It's all about these games in hand. I think that's what everyone has come down to. If you can make something happen with these 4 to 5 games in hand, get, 7 points out of those 5 games. Again, we keep going back to it, but 7 points out of those 5 games puts you in the spot, puts you in a position to be successful. And speaking of being successful, Sabres have done it on the road, but they're going to look to do it tonight at home against Toronto. I'm going to cue it up for you, Gatesy. What's the bigger storyline for you tonight? Ryan O'Reilly coming back to Buffalo, or the fact that this is the 3rd game in 4 nights for Toronto, and maybe they could be a little sleepy?
I mean, I'm going to be a little selfish here. I think it's got to be the return of Ryan O'Reilly because, he's been out west for a bit, and he's kind of been a name, I don't want to say forgotten by Sabres fans, but I think there's some other names that have been thrown around in the past from the days gone by that the team and the fans do care about. But I think it'll be weird to see O'Reilly in a Leafs jersey, seeing him so frequently. But this is a perfect opportunity for the Sabres to catch a Leafs team that might be tired, that be looking past for a future game. And tonight's the night if they're going to, come out and get 2 points in regulation. Tonight could be the night. Got an energy-filled building. I think tonight's got to be the.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the focus for Sabres fans is definitely a lot more on the O'Reilly thing. I'm just looking at, though, it's not just the 3 games in 4 nights that I'm looking at for the Maple Leafs. They'll actually go home, have 2 days off, play Minnesota, and then they're on a 5-game, road trip, going out west, Seattle, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, before coming back home to New Jersey. So we're kind of catching them at the end of a slew of games and before they have to go on for a road trip. So I feel like it's a best of all worlds there. Speaking of best of all worlds, I know we'll talk about UPL. We'll talk about this. I mean, they're basically making the Sabres a pick'em against one of the top teams in the league, Gatesy.
Yeah, I can't tell if this is like the biggest rat line in the world or just the easiest money you could ever take because you look at it on paper, this Toronto team, they're where they're at in the standings for a reason. They're a good hockey team, and they've gotten better at the deadline. And the fact that Vegas has the Sabres where they're at just in a almost pick-em situation against the Leafs, I think speaks a lot to how other people see the Sabres team now because I think we've been towing the wagon for a bit on, the potential of this team and when they play their best. And I think Vegas, the whole, NHL community is starting to see that now to Buffalo, that they can win games that, they might not have been picked to win, a year or so ago.
Most definitely getting it done in ways that people didn't previously expect. I agree. And going into it tonight. So you have obviously Matthews, you got Tage Thompson, some funny talk with the Arizona factor there. Do you view it as like, yeah, Matthews is going to get his, even though he hasn't necessarily had like big time historical success against the Sabres, do you view it as you're going to get his and shut the rest of them down? Or is that actually a matchup you want to attack tonight?
I think for Buffalo, they're not going to win a running gun game against the Leafs with the offense that they have. I mean, the Sabres have great players, yes, but outside that first line, it's pretty inconsistent on a night in, night out basis. The Sabres have to focus on, that Matthews line, but it's going to be a whole team effort and not just blowing their own zone and trying to win a 6-5 game. And, can the Sabres score that many goals? Yes. And Toronto's definitely going to score tonight, but they got to play their own game. They got to focus on themselves, and shutting down 34 is going to be great, but it might be impossible, especially, when you have someone on the defensive end that like Clagg's out. Team's not super banged up like it used to be, but they're still not running 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously need to monitor all things at all times. Speaking of which, pulling it up here. So obviously we have the matchup tonight, and like we said, it's not going to be, do or die. Even though I did see, this is like a 12% shift for playoff odds. 52% with a win, 40% with a loss. Some are saying, and I know all the sites have different. Do you subscribe to any site specifically with those playoff odds?
It's tough. Like, I don't know how you look at that and not give the Sabres better chance of making the playoffs with the games in hand. It's what they're down.
To me, I mean, this is just like the Bills. I didn't mean to cut you off, but this is just like the Bills when they were struggling in November after those losses to the Jets and the Vikings. Yeah, they were down in the standings and they were a little bit out, but Vegas was still betting on what Vegas was betting on the whole season. So Vegas is absolutely still all in. Sabres are exactly 2/3 through the schedule. They have 1/3 of the games remaining. And Vegas is absolutely wagering that the Sabres are going to stumble in these final 27 games. They're also betting that the Panthers are going to kind of pick it up. I mean, like they've been betting on all season. But yeah, I think that is it. If you look at it to me, I think the Panthers are the team in, and you're playing for the second spot or the first spot, depending again on how you look at it. But I think you got to be better than the Islanders. You got to be better than the Penguins. You got to be better than the Capitals. And it's like, I look at the Red Wings. It shocks me that the Red Wings are here because I feel like, haven't we gone like 3-0 against them this year? So you're telling me, I feel like we've had success against them this year. So my thinking is, it's just bizarre. I don't even know how they're there, but whatever. I mean, the Senators, I guess it's kind of crazy, but just take care of your own business. Don't worry about anybody else. Again, I do think the Sabres, it's crazy to say because it feels like these teams have been, pillars forever, but are better than an Ovechkin Capitals. They're better than a Crosby Penguins. And I mean, the Islanders have looked like nothing special this year. So I have all the faith in the world they can beat them. Again, I'm going to give credit to the Panthers and let them keep their ground, but all the faith in our Sabres to get it done. So speaking of tonight, we got Cale Clegg out. Are you worried? Does that make you nervous at all?
I mean, I'm a big Cale Clegg guy, but there's definitely guys on defense I do care a little bit more if they're in or out of the lineup. And I hope, with all this talk about Clegg and how well he's been doing, so maybe lights a fire under Bryson. He can come out, make some good plays tonight, and, hopefully not be a dash too. Like that's, I think what's really big for that third pairing D group is just to not be a minus as often as they have been. So
for that bottom D pairing, would you take -1 right now?
In tonight's game, I would take a -1 out of them.
I think so too. Well, anything but a -2. Just no -2s or worse for sure. Okay, I'm all about that. Well, hey, speaking of predictions, speaking of getting the numbers right, Outlet Liquor pregame show, Crossing Swords pregame, Maple Leafs, Sabres, Gatesy. What do you got when it all goes down? KeyBank Center.
I mean, this just feels like a Sabres game, but seeing Johnny Lazarus pick the Sabres straight out put a little fear in me tonight. But I think the Sabres do edge one out. 4-3 regulation. I think the building's going to be loud. I'm in Pittsburgh right now. I think I'm going to be able to hear it. When that puck drops, the building's going to be roaring. 4-3 Sabres win.
I wanted to pick different than you. But
really?
When I went, I felt it the entire day, the entire show. 4-3 Sabres get it done. Sabres win tonight. And man, what a good feeling this would be to have this game in hand, these 2 points in hand going into those Thursday, Friday, Panhandle, Florida matchups. Very exciting.
That's
very exciting time to be a Sabres fan indeed. Hopefully they'll take care of it tonight. For more exciting times, thanks for following us along on the Crossing Swords pregame show. Make sure you're following us on all platforms, SoundCloud, Apple, Spotify. Make sure you're following my guy Gatesy35 on Twitter and Instagram. Because remember, it's the show where, yes, sometimes we do get our signals crossed, but our swords always are. And on this show, it's all about 3 words. Let's go Sabres.